Hey friends, welcome back to Homestead on a Prayer. Today we are outside even though it's a little bit cold today. I know you can probably see a little bit of snow and ice left on the ground behind me. Despite that, we're going to be talking about the summer garden and starting some seeds for the summer garden. Today we're going to be talking about peppers. Basically, I'm just going to go through the list of pepper varieties that I have decided to grow in my 2025 garden this year. I just wanted to share with you which varieties I'll be growing, a little bit about the ones that I've grown before, and hopefully you can fill in any information on the ones I haven't grown before. So I am, just as a note, filming this video in early March. This is probably not going to get posted for maybe a week or two, so it'll probably be mid-March by the time you see this. So if you see this video and you're horrified that I still have snow on the ground, note that this video was filmed a little bit before it's actually going to get posted. So, as I said, we're just going to talk about the pepper varieties that I plan to grow this year. So I'm going to start with hot peppers. We do like to grow hot peppers, and overall I actually find in my garden that hot peppers on the whole tend to be a little bit more successful for me in the garden than sweet peppers do. But that being said, we're not going to be growing anything really hot. We like to grow jalapenos, but we don't grow really hot peppers. So there'll just be a handful of varieties on this list. Now I mentioned jalapenos, which are probably one of the most common and most popular hot pepper varieties. And we have 3 hot varieties of jalapenos that we'll be growing in the garden this year. These are all varieties that I've grown before, and I've enjoyed all of them, obviously, since I'm growing them again. So as I go through these varieties that I've grown in the past, if I have video clips of them from last summer's garden, I'll try to share those with you so that you can see what they look like. I know that I probably don't have video of everything, even if we've grown it before, but what I do have, I'll try to throw in there to make this video a little more visually appealing and hopefully just let you see what these peppers look like grown in a real life garden. So the first variety that I'm going to mention is the early jalapeno. This is really your classic jalapeno variety. You know, it's basically everything you think of with a jalapeno. You know, the fairly small, green, dark green, hot pepper. I do find with the early jalapeno, at least in my garden, it's tended to be a little bit more mild than the other jalapeno varieties that we grow. I like to grow several different jalapeno varieties, partly because I like to have just that variety in heat levels. And, you know, I am a little bit more of a wimp when it comes to hot food. So I tend to prefer the early jalapeno. It tends to be a little bit less spicy, where my husband tends to prefer the other varieties that we grow. That being said, last summer, all of my jalapenos were really, really hot, even the early jalapeno variety. I'm not sure what the difference was. You know, I've always heard that hot peppers tend to be a little bit hotter when you have hotter weather going along with them, and additionally when you have a lack of rainfall. Now last summer in my area, I think the temperatures were pretty average, and we had more rain than normal, so I'm not really sure. Somehow we ended up with really hot peppers despite that. So the early jalapenos were hotter than they normally are, but the same was true of the other hot peppers that we grew as well. Now the early jalapeno tends to be fairly early, as the name suggests. As I said, tends to be a little bit more mild, tends to be fairly prolific, it yields well, grows really easily for us, no problems with it, so it's a great one that I highly recommend. The next jalapeno variety that we'll be growing this year is the Jala Fuego. That one tends to be a little bit spicier than the early jalapeno. We find in some years the early jalapeno has, not even really a significant spice level, where the Jala Fuego always does. That one tends to be spicier. The description from the seed company that I bought it from said that it tends to be a little bit larger than the average jalapeno, which I'm not sure if that's really been true in my case. Maybe it's a little bit larger than the early jalapeno, but overall it's a really reliable, dependable plant. We've always gotten a great yield from it. We've always really enjoyed it. I will say one thing to note, and this is really only an issue if you're planning on saving your seeds. The Jala Fuego variety is a hybrid variety, which means that the seeds are not guaranteed to come true to type if you save the seeds. That being said, if you have ever tried to save seeds from a Jala Fuego, I'd love to hear what kind of plant you got. Was it really similar to the parent plant, or was there a significant difference? Because that's something I might be interested in giving a try too. The third jalapeno variety that I want to mention that will be growing this year is the Craig's Grande jalapeno. This one, compared to the other two, is a little bit newer to me. This is going to be, I believe, my third year growing the Craig's Grande, so I don't have as much experience with this one to compare. It does tend to be a little bit larger, which the name suggests. I want to say the heat level, I didn't notice a significant difference. I'd say it's probably on par with a Jalafuego. But you know, we had that last summer that was kind of an anomaly. So I would say that I would guess that it's probably about the same as a Jalafuego. Pretty significant heat level, but nothing overwhelming. So we do really enjoy that one as well. So the next hot pepper variety that I want to mention that we are going to be growing this year is the poblano pepper. Now this one, it is a spicy pepper, but it's not very spicy. It tends to be milder than a jalapeno. It's larger than a jalapeno. It's a nice dark green. We really enjoy this pepper because, you know, sometimes you want that nice pepper flavor, just a little bit of heat, but you don't want it to really be a spicy dish, and the poblano is perfect for that. So there's a couple main uses that I have for the poblano pepper. Probably my most frequent use for this pepper is I really like to use it in making chilies. Now, of course, I don't tend to cook chili that often over the summer because it's more of a fall and winter dish in my house. And of course, we don't grow those peppers over the winter. So what I tend to do with the poblanos is when I harvest them, I tend to just put them under the broiler till the skin gets a little blackened, flip it over a couple times to make sure it's pretty evenly charred. Then I will peel the skin off, chop it into little bite-sized pieces, and then I'll freeze it. And then in the winter when I go to make chili, I can just pull it out of my freezer. Makes meal prep a little bit easier too, so that's a nice bonus. And then we get some delicious homegrown, home-roasted poblanos in our chili. I do also sometimes like to add poblanos to something that I'm using jalapenos in when I want a little more of the pepper flavor without really increasing the heat level. So for example, if I'm making something like a cowboy candy, it's basically a condiment made with jalapenos that tends to be, they're pickled and candied at the same time, really delicious. But sometimes I want them to be a little bit milder. So if that's the case, I'll mix in some poblanos along with the jalapenos just to tone down the heat level a little bit. They're really good that way. I know there are lots of other delicious ways to cook poblanos, so if you have any go-to poblano recipes, go ahead and leave those in the comments because I would love to hear those. Now the next pepper I'm going to mention, I'm probably growing this year, I'm actually not 100% sure, is the cayenne pepper. You know, this is a classic pepper with long, skinny red peppers. Very prolific, very easy to grow. Always does really well for us. The only reason I may not grow it this year, I don't actually grow that one every year because I find that it yields so well for me. And then what I end up doing is taking the peppers and drying them. So I'll have to look through my inventory and see how many dried cayennes I have left from last year to see if I need to grow that one again. If we're a little bit low, then I will go ahead and grow some more of those. If I have quite a few, I may skip it for this year. So with the cayenne, as I said, we dehydrate pretty much all the peppers. Sometimes what I will do is basically the opposite of what I do with the poblano. If I want to bump up the heat level in something using jalapenos, say I'm making jalapeno, maybe pickled jalapenos or something like that, and I want it to have a little higher heat level, I will throw a cayenne pepper or two in the mix, and that will bump up the heat level. So aside from that, we pretty much just dehydrate them, and then I'll either turn them into herbal medicine, I'll add them to my fire cider. Sometimes I don't even dehydrate them for that. If I make fire cider at the end of the summer, I'll just throw a fresh cayenne or two in there. And then the rest of them we'll dehydrate to use in herbal medicine throughout the winter, or we will grind them up into a powder and use it as seasoning. So it's a great, useful pepper, so good one to grow. The final hot pepper that we're going to grow this year is the lemon drop pepper. This one's kind of a fun, different pepper. This one has a pretty high heat level. It's been significantly hotter than the jalapenos that we've grown. But in addition to the higher heat level, it also has a really interesting flavor. You know, it's called a lemon drop pepper because the mature peppers are yellow, but you know, they're yellow like a lemon, but they also, I think, have a little bit of that citrusy flavor to kind of go along with the lemon color, which makes them really interesting. So while they are a really hot pepper, they're also a fruity pepper, and they just have a different kind of flavor. I found that the lemon drop pepper yields really prolifically. We've been really happy with the yield, so I'll probably grow 1 or 2 plants of this. I won't need very many. Kind of similarly to the cayenne, what we do with most of these is dry them, grind them into a powder, and use them as a seasoning. I will sometimes, if I have a few left at the end of the season, what I'll do is I'll usually take up all the hot peppers that I have, whatever little stragglers are left. Maybe I'll make a jar of refrigerator pickled peppers, just stick it in the fridge, and then those make a great, mostly for my husband, a great addition to tacos or other foods that you want to bump up the heat level with a little bit. So I'll do those with kind of any of those peppers that I have left at the end of the season. So that is all that I have planned to grow for hot peppers this year. I do have one pepper, which kind of goes into both categories, the hot and the not hot, and that is the jalapeno. This is a type of jalapeno, but it doesn't have heat. So it's been bred to basically eliminate the heat of a jalapeno pepper, but it's still a small green pepper like a jalapeno. This one I have actually not grown before, so I can't really share my experience with it, but I'm really excited to give it a try. So there might be some instances where I want to use jalapenos but not have so much heat. So for example, my plans for it would be similar to what I said with the poblano with making cowboy candy. I generally use jalapenos with that, but sometimes if I want to make a batch that's, a little milder, I would add some of the jalapenos in there along with the hot jalapenos, and the hope is that then the overall spice level will be toned down and kind of find a happy medium. So that's one of my plans for them. Also, what my family likes to do with jalapenos pretty often is to make what we call jalapeno poppers. I don't know if they're officially jalapeno poppers because they're not breaded, but stuffed jalapenos. We basically take the jalapenos, stuff them with cream cheese and cheddar, and then wrap them up in bacon. I know it's a pretty common way to use jalapenos, and it's very delicious. But sometimes we want some that, aren't as spicy. And so the jalapenos would provide some great variety in that area as well. That way people who don't want the kick of the jalapeno can still enjoy the stuffed jalapenos. So I plan to use them in those ways. If you have grown jalapenos before, I would love to hear your experience with them. Next, I want to mention the Corno de Toro peppers. Now, we love these peppers. I've grown the red Corno de Toro and the yellow Corno de Toro both several times in the past and been really happy with them. Now, we love sweet peppers in my house. What I have found though is that the yield, specifically with bell peppers, tends to not be, the yield is less than desirable, I'll say. I really wish that my bell peppers would yield a little bit more. So what I've been trying to do is grow more sweet peppers that are not bell peppers. Now, I don't know if you can hear my chickens in the background. They're across the yard, but they're being awfully noisy. So if you hear some interesting squawking over there, that's my chickens. Probably have some fresh eggs in the coop to go gather. Anyway, so the Corno de Toro is shaped very differently than a bell pepper. It's longer and skinnier. And so if you're looking for something like a stuffed bell pepper, it's not really going to work. But anything where you cut the peppers into bite-sized pieces or into strips or anything like that, the Corno de Toro makes a great bell pepper replacement. So that was my main purpose in growing those. As I said, I started off with the red and the yellow varieties, both of which are pretty commonly available. And then last year we added in the orange variety and the chocolate variety as well. Those were a little bit harder to find, but once I found a sweet pepper I liked like that, I had to try all the colors. We were really happy with all 4 colors. Obviously that provides us great variety in color, but it also provides variety in flavor as well. Each color has a little bit of a different flavor, and so I really enjoyed growing all of them. Now, all of those peppers could also be harvested green. They mature to red, yellow, brown, or orange, depending on the variety. But you can harvest them green and use them as a green bell pepper replacement as well. Now, this year, I actually had trouble finding the yellow variety of the Corno de Toro. So I still had seeds of the other 3 varieties left, so I'll be growing all of those. I'm sure I could have found the yellow variety available, but none of the seed companies that I was already ordering from carried it this year, and I didn't want to add yet another seed order onto my list. So for this year, we'll be skipping the yellow, but I will have the red, the chocolate, and the orange varieties all growing in my garden this year. Next, I'm also going to be growing the red Marconi pepper. I tried this pepper last year for the first time, looking for yet more sweet peppers that I could kind of grow instead of bell peppers. And I was really happily impressed with the red Marconi pepper. As I said, last year was the first year I grew it. It had been my expectation, I think based on pictures that I'd seen, that the red Marconi would be a little bit longer and skinnier, more similar to the Corno de Toro in shape. But the peppers that grew from my plant were actually shaped pretty similarly to bell peppers, but the yield was better than bell peppers, so, I'll take that. That was great. I was really happy with that. So I don't know if maybe there's some variability in shape of the red Marconi. Maybe this year I'll get more of the longer, skinnier peppers that I was expecting, but we'll see what happens. So I am growing the red Marconi again this year. Additionally, I also found seeds for the golden Marconi pepper. The reason that I decided to try that one this year is because, as I mentioned, I couldn't find the yellow Corno de Toro variety available. So I figured the golden Marconi might kind of fill that void that was left by the yellow Corno de Toro. So I'll be giving that one a try this year for the first time. Now, going along with the Marconi pepper theme, so many of you last year recommended that I try the giant Marconi pepper. And you know, when I get recommendations from that many people, I'm like, there's got to be something to this. So we're going to be giving that one a try this year. I'm really excited to grow the giant Marconi. This will be my first time growing it. Now, this one is a hybrid pepper. And you know, I love to save seeds. So the fact that it's a hybrid was a little bit of a downside to me, but I figured I would give it a try. And I actually mentioned that in one of my videos, and one of you commented and said that you had actually saved seeds from the giant Marconi and they came true to type even though it was a hybrid. So that's something that I will be experimenting with this year. I'm excited to give that a try. Now, I know, as I said, many of you have already shared your experience with the giant Marconi and how successful it was. But if you have anything else to share about that pepper, I would love to hear it because I'm really looking forward to growing that one this year. The next pepper that I'm growing this year is the red Lesia pepper. I'm not 100% sure I pronounced that correctly, but I will put the spelling on the screen so that you can see how it's spelled. I've grown that one for the past 2 years and really enjoyed it. If I had to pick one pepper that was my favorite as far as just like a fresh eating pepper, this would probably be the one. You know, it's delicious. It's got a wonderful sweet flavor. It's got really thick pepper walls, so it provides there's a lot of meat on this pepper, and I do really enjoy it. The one downside of the Lesia is that I do wish it yielded a little bit more, but it did yield well enough that I'm still definitely willing to allocate some space to it in the garden. So I'm really excited to try that one. Now, a couple of you over the past year mentioned that there is another variety of Lesia pepper, which is orange. So, you know, I had to give that one a try too. So I kind of had that in my mind that one was one that I would be interested in trying. And then I saw that Baker Creek actually introduced the orange Lesia pepper to their seed varieties this year. So I was planning on ordering from them anyway. So I said, perfect, we will order the orange Lesia pepper and give that one a try. So I'm really excited to see how that compares to the red Lesia, because when it comes to bell peppers, the orange variety is actually my favorite. So since I really enjoy the red Lesia, I assume I will enjoy the orange Lesia as well. So I'm really looking forward to giving that one a try. Next, I want to mention the shishito pepper. This one is a classic. I grow this every year, and it's a classic for a reason. This is a very popular pepper. It's not really sweet, but you know, I'm putting it in the sweet pepper category. It's really delicious, and I find that it's really prolific. These plants yield really well. I find that it's just a good pepper. It's a pretty small pepper, and you know, the way that I use it most commonly is probably the way that is most common to use shishito peppers, which is to take all the little peppers, poke holes in them so they don't explode, and just blister them in a pan over fairly high heat, and then sprinkle some coarse sea salt on them and dip them in a garlic aioli dipping sauce, and just eat them plain like that. You know, that's a pretty classic way to enjoy them, and that's the way that we found that we really enjoy them best. That is another pepper, though, that I am looking for other ways to cook. So if you have other suggestions for how you enjoy the shishito pepper, I would really love to hear from you about that as well. Now, I know that I said when I listed most of these sweet peppers that I am trying to get away from growing bell peppers just because the yield isn't as good. That being said, there are a couple bell pepper varieties that I am trying this year for the first time. Keeping my expectations on the lowish side just because of my history with bell peppers, but I'm hoping that these will exceed expectations. The first pepper variety that I am going to mention is the yellow monster pepper. And this one, the sun is coming around the roof of my house and getting a little bright. So we're gonna try to wrap up this video pretty quickly before it gets too bright. So back to the yellow monster pepper. This one is a bell pepper, supposed to be larger than the average bell pepper. Now, I am not anticipating that I will have, enough success to grow these huge monster peppers. But if it's the size of a regular bell pepper, I will definitely be happy with that. I'll take that. I've heard that this one tends to have good yield, and then I've also heard from other people that the yield isn't as good. So I don't know if that's a your market may vary type of situation. If you have grown that pepper, I'd love to hear your experience with it. I'm gonna give it a try and we'll see how it does in my garden. But I've heard that it yields well and has large peppers and has delicious flavor. So hopefully all that I have heard is true. We'll find out together this gardening season. Now the next bell pepper variety that I'm trying this year for the first time is the diamond bell pepper. This is a creamy white bell pepper, and I was gonna be a sucker for trying this bell pepper because I don't have any peppers that color in my garden. The creamy white will just add some really nice variety to my pepper harvest, and I've heard that it has a really mild sweet flavor, so I'm excited to give it a try. I'm not sure how the yield will be. We'll find out, again, find that out together. But if you've grown that one, I'd love to hear your experience about that as well. So at the time of filming, that is the complete list of peppers that I'm planning to grow this year. Subject to change, but I don't think it will change. I think that's pretty much what I'm going to be growing, and I'm actually going to be starting seeds fairly soon, so I don't have that much time to change my mind. So, as I said, I'd love to hear any experiences that you have with any of these peppers, any suggestions for how you like to use any of these peppers. And if you have any other favorites that I haven't mentioned, please go ahead and leave that in a comment because, why not? Why not just give myself temptation to grow more varieties? So I hope you all are having a great day. I can't wait to see you soon. I'll see you next time.